Alrighty, hello and welcome to Not Your Everyday MMA YouTube channel. We have a very special guest on today, Elise Reed. Hello, how are you doing?
I am great. How are you guys?
Doing awesome. We're doing
Not too bad.
awesome.
Can't complain.
Very stoked to have you on. Yes. And so I just want to start off with you had an amazing fight, I believe like 2 weeks ago. How are you doing since that win?
I'm great. I'm sure the other girl isn't feeling too hot. But I'm healing quickly. She did get some solid low kicks, so I've had a bruise on the side of my leg since the fight. Didn't feel it at all though. Thank goodness for adrenaline.
Yeah.
Until after, and that's what a cold beverage is for, is to help you out with that. So I'm good. Obviously going right back into work. But the good news is UFC is interested in another fight soon, so you may see me sooner than later. We'll see.
That's awesome. And I did want to touch on that because I did see that was your last fight in the contract. So how does that work? Do they reach out to you? Do you reach out to them? How does the whole contract
You
situation?
know, we're all new to this, including myself.
Yeah.
So I did well, whatever, 2 weeks ago, and normally I think the timeline is 2 weeks that you
Mhm.
hear back and they reach out to you, and then if not, you reach back to them. So it was less than a week where they reached out asking when I could fight next, and they have a proposed opponent, and yeah, so we'll see if we can make it happen. But good news is it looks like I'm safe. I'm still in the UFC. They haven't cut me yet.
No, I mean that's really good. And you came in an underdog in that fight, but you looked so dominant the entire fight. How did that feel coming in the underdog and then winning in a pretty dominant fashion, from at least my opinion?
Yeah. I always find it interesting when they put me against a striker and think that they're going to be able to go toe to toe. I don't have the most. I know I'm not conventional. I know that I've sparred with people before, and they don't like sparring me because I'm so unconventional. So I got a little bit of shade from the commentators about my hands down and flat footed, but she was walking away from me, and I think that like Nate Diaz style
Yeah.
is going to continue, where I just walk forward. But I felt great. I mean, um, striking's like my home. So we want to throw strikers against strikers. You're only going to see me at my best. So it was really nice to be able to do that and get 3 takedowns.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
watch out. I mean, they weren't the prettiest. I will get better there, but no, it was a great fight. I have yeah, I'm always looking to get better, but um I was happy to drop her in the first. I say I'm pretty proud
I
of that.
was just about to touch on that. That right hand did not look comfortable. That looked pretty heavy. How good does that feel when you just like knock someone down and you just see it in front of your eyes? Do you know whether to hop on them or what? Like, how do you decide whether to hop on or kind of stay back?
Yeah, so I look in the eyes, not like we're doing a staring contest type thing, because that wouldn't be good because I can't see anything else. But when you can see like the daze in their eyes, then you know you're pretty much, it's like there's blood in the water. She did a really good job standing back up. She was caught off guard, but not necessarily rocked to where she was stumbling. So it's something that I will continue to work on. But I didn't even think I was going to get the right hand because it was a lefty versus right. So to have your right hand so far away, both in her cross was the same thing. Um, for her to give me an opportunity to hit her like that, it was exciting to say the least. When like the first 3 minutes I dropped her. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was cool.
You know, I'm sure just overall it was very exciting. Pay-per-view card, big arena. How was that experience? Even just Bruce, like
Yeah.
giving like intros and stuff.
It's surreal. It never gets old. At least not in the last fights that I've had. It never gets old, and it's always like a big motivator. I think, as a fighter, you try to figure out where your emotions are. Are you angry? Are you mad? Um, are you careless? But for me, I always want to put on a show for the people that are there. So I like to hear the oohs and ahs. My sister was very loud as well, so I heard her the whole time. But no, it's amazing. It's absolutely surreal, and it's the reason why I fight. I mean, getting hit in the face isn't the most fun, but to do it in front of to do it in front of a crowd where you can put on a performance like that, that's the most exciting. You know, and the free beers after aren't bad either. So it is what it is.
For sure.
And so really quick, for me, previously before I got really into the sport, I always saw it as like a little like too violent. I was like, oh, I like could never like a sport like that. But the more I dove deeper and deeper into it, the more I noticed the different layers that is in MMA, the different forms of martial arts, and the more I started to see it as two people beating each other up as a sport, as breaking it down. And I started looking into the fighters' lives, and it just made me fall in love. And I really want to talk about your life because wow, you are a busy, busy woman. I mean, 2 weeks after a fight and you're already back training. I mean, for military. So if you could just touch on what your everyday life looks like and just what you do, because you own and operate 2 gyms, you're part of the military and a professional UFC fighter.
Yeah, I would say I don't know what my day's gonna look like as much as you don't know what my day's gonna look like, because it could be. I mean, I don't know how many times I've told my coach, told my family, hey, by the way, actually, I'm going to do this tomorrow, and then training's going to go from here and there. So it's a constant reorganizing of my schedule. But I'd say a normal day is probably, you know, it depends on whether I'm in fight camp or I'm doing military stuff. So the nice thing is that I get to blend it all nice and easy, right? So my fight camp took the priority of it all. Army, I ended up doing a little bit at home, but then I get it done with fighting, and now it's totally Army. So I will say that I don't have a break. There's no vacation planned, but it balances between one another.
Yeah, and I just want to so in terms of like being in the Army, so what necessarily do you do? Like, what are your end goals? So do you plan on continuing competing in the UFC and being in the Army, or do you like what is more of your end goal? Being in the military longer than you are competing in MMA, or do you just kind of want to hold out both of them for as long as you can?
I joined military was my first goal. So I joined because I wanted to be in the military. I went to military school for that reason. And then I realized I love teaching, and so I went into teaching and the military. It's a lot to handle right now. It is a constant change in schedule and priorities, and a lot of times, especially when you're you make it to the UFC, that should be the epitome of what you're doing in the sport. So I've had to reevaluate my priorities a little bit, but I would love to stay in if I can. If the leadership that's in the military understands it enough and helps me, I would love to. My grandfather was 28 years, Air Force, he retired. So if I can, I would. But in terms of the fighting stuff, we're gonna go all the way. We're gonna go balls to the wall, as fast, as hard as we can. And the military will probably have to take a step to the side for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So you talk about how you were in the military first. How did you get into MMA then?
It was kind of like a bet between my coach and I. Sorry. So I'm very competitive. It's hard not to be in a sport like this and not be competitive. So I was very competitive. I was at school already. I was doing water polo and swimming, nothing to do with martial arts. But I couldn't, like, I did a kickboxing match probably 1 year before that. And I told my coach, I was like, listen, hear me out. It's going to sound pretty crazy. I'll do a fight in the summer. If it doesn't go well, you never hear from me again. We never do anything with fighting, and we just I'll just sit down. I understand I'm not there. And he's like, okay, because I finished the school year in May, right? The fight was in July. So I had 8 weeks. Never been in a cage before. And I was like, well, we'll see how it goes. 15 seconds, it was over. And I couldn't say no to the next one. And Mr. K, my coach couldn't say no. So we just kind of like slowly escalated it from there. And then we got 3 belts in amateurs. And he's like, so we should probably go pro now, right? And I was like, I'd like to get paid. Would you like to get paid? He goes, yeah. I said, okay, so let's go pro. So that's how 90% of the conversations have been. It's just been like this buildup, and obviously getting to the UFC, you have to reevaluate it again, because everybody there is living out their dreams, is gonna beat the shit out of you and would rather die than get out of the cage, right? So It's been a growth, but yeah, it was just happenstance really. The girl didn't have a good weight cut. She looked green, and I just finished it so quick that Mr. K wasn't gonna be like, oh yeah, no, you suck
Yeah.
there. So it was
Yeah.
didn't
That's
have that fight,
awesome.
I wouldn't be here today. That's for sure.
Right. And I mean, even 15-second ref stoppage, I think your next fight you won like a first round knockout. When that happens,
Yes.
are you like, all right, I'm made for this? Like at that point, are you like, did you know you were gonna like end up winning championships at that point, or were you still like, maybe it's just beginner's like?
I mean, I was very confident in my background. I was very confident in my fundamentals to where I could hit hard. And I still think, as much as, my record is what it is in the UFC, nobody wants to throw with me, and that's because they know enough. They know enough. So I was confident in that in terms of like UFC and championship belts and having a reign that I did. Not necessarily, but it was kind of like an oh shit moment. I was like, oh shit, okay. The second girl that I fought, I'm maybe 22, maybe, probably 21, 22. She is like a grown woman. I fought traditionally at 105. Like I'm not a big 115.
Yeah.
I'm still working to get there.
Yeah.
And she was like this like Scottish old school weightlifter thing, the thing with the kilt, and they have that whole game where
Yeah.
they throw rocks at people or lift rocks. So that's her. That's her photo. And I'm gonna talk smack a little bit, but it just caught me off guard. I'm young, right? I'm like still getting into it, and she looked huge, huge. Her armpits weren't shaven. I was scared. Okay,
Yeah.
I was not sure if I was ready to commit the way she had committed. And then I dropped her, and I was like, okay, well, it's not so bad. But she scared the shit out of me. Our second fight, I was like, okay, well, I had a girl that was green and couldn't make a weight cut, and now I have Helga over here that probably has been eating prunes and spinach since she was 5. So I mean, it was a cool moment for sure. I would say that was one of my coolest fights was that whole exchange, because I did a lot of work. But yeah, she scared the shit out of me at the beginning. I was like this like scrawny. I mean, I'm still scrawny, but a little bit bigger. But yeah, that was something.
That would be freaky. I mean, especially as like an amateur and so young, facing these older guys. I mean, we just had someone on the Contender Series, 17 years old, get a contract with the UFC, which is crazy. I mean, and just really quick, these younger fighters just getting so good now. It's insane.
Yeah.
But touching on how you're talking with your coach, so I heard that you have a very close relationship with your coach, that you've been with him for so long. So if you could kind of touch on that and how this relationship has affected you in your career for the better.
No, so I started martial arts because I wanted to be a Power Ranger. I joked that I'm not quite there yet, but I'm pretty close. I feel like maybe I'll get hired later, although I can't do any of the acrobatics. But I started young, probably 6 or 7, and he was an instructor there at the school, and I worked for him. I was one of his first employees in 2007. So at 14, I was working for him, and he always said, he's like, "Why don't you open a school?" I was like, "Come on, I'm gonna do school first. I'm gonna do military." I was like, "I'm gonna get the fuck out of Dodge. I'm not gonna come back home." And he's like, get a school." So I went to college, came back, realized I wanted a school, and he's been the best. I mean, he's an instructor. I think a lot of times in this type of industry, there's so many people that have so much experience that think their experience is like the be all end all, right? I know the secret move, and it's going to save you from all the other moves. And he has always been someone that's very open minded, and he was the one that sold me his school. So I had a school from him. He sold it to me, and this fighting, the MMA history has been us just learning together. Really, I mean, he has said over and over again, there's gonna be times where you're gonna need a different type of coach. You need to start working on your wrestling, on your jiu-jitsu, and he's always allowed me to train at different schools and get that perspective. But he knows me a lot more than most coaches, just because he's seen me grow up for the last 22 years, something stupid like that. Like knows me almost as much as my parents. You know what I mean? I have his mannerisms. And when I was in college and I graduated, he came to the party, and my mom goes, "So do you think you've been a positive or a negative influence on my daughter?" And then they had shared some drinks, and they had a good time. But no, he knows me like more than I know myself sometimes. You know, when you get injured and you don't want to do something, or you do want to do something you're not supposed to. He's been there the entire time. So I'm very grateful to have him in my corner, and he's open to getting help and insight when we need it. So it's a dynamic duo, to say the least.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, you always have to have that one person that motivates you from the beginning, and that's a rare story. You never really hear fighters with their coach for that long, especially since 6 years old.
Yeah.
And so, like, in terms, you said that you swam, you did water polo, and you competed as an NCAA athlete. How'd you get into that? And when did you kind of say, okay, this era's over the swim, now it's going into the mixed martial arts era? How did you decide kind of what to choose there?
So I've always kind of been like a leaf in the wind. I will always be pushed. If there's an opportunity or something that I can learn from or grow from, I'll always do that. So like I thought a sweat party at VMI at the school was actually a party. So when I was invited to the party, I thought I was like popular, right? I was like, oh, I'm pretty cool. No. It was pretty much a haze fest. I mean, you don't want to say haze fest, but I got a bloody nose from yelling so loud the first party, the first party that I was invited to. So yeah, so for swimming, it was I started it in high school, and it was kind of something where I had done a lot in martial arts and wanted to see if I could do the same thing, just working hard. And so I was like, fuck it. I was like, I know how to swim. Now, when I say I know how to swim, it was like Cherry Valley Country Club. Every time we have a practice and we win a game, we play minnows and sharks and minnows and diving contests. So there was no competitive part of that swimming team at all. So I thought I knew how to swim. I drank about a gallon of water, just the first practice, and my coach let me stay on the team because she knew me. And then I went to college, and I was like, hey, you got a swim team? Can I jump on? They said yes. And because VMI's, military, they had a lot of people leaving, and the water polo coach goes, do you know how to swim? And at that point, I was a little bit better. I said yes.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's how I got on the water polo team. I've never said no to an opportunity, but I also now have 3 concussions, a broken tooth, a separated shoulder, and I wrestled one of our teammates, and I said I fell down the stairs because she was like 190 pounds, and she busted my ankle. I had to lie to my coach. So I've had a lot of things. I mean, water polo has only made me tougher, but it's not normally for a small individual like me. But whatever, I fuck it, right? So that's what it was.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Does having that kind of swimming background, I don't know if you struggle with weight, but I'm assuming not, having that kind of background where you're kind of used to stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd say I am the most. I mean, we talk about these kids that are doing MMA since they were 5, and that they're, the one. I mean, kudos to the one kid at 17 getting into UFC. He's obviously done more than I have in that regard. But you talk about all the people that are focusing on one sport, and in running, 90% of it is overtraining. 90% of the injuries are overtraining. So I was very fortunate, and I'm very grateful that I've had multiple sports to kind of build my composition, because before water polo, I was 109 pounds, and I thought I was jacked. Okay. My arms are like this. Water polo was where I started to lift, and I started to add on a little bit of muscle mass. And yeah, swimming aerobically. I mean, I've been very grateful to have a bunch of sports to kind of even myself out, so I don't get too many of the same injuries, and I fall off the bandwagon. Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of like fight and cutting weight, how much weight do you usually cut in terms of fight camp? Do you usually cut any weight, or like do you kind of walk in? Is it an easy process for you?
Well, I'll say I'd like to try to cut as much weight as possible. If I do it right, I cut a lot of weight and I wake up heavier the day of. But it ranges. It's under 10 pounds. I cut under 10. It's normally very, very light. then I continue to lose after the fight's over for whatever reason, and then I just got to build it back up. It's the most frustrating thing, actually. Everybody's like, you have the easiest problem. You lose weight and gain weight, and it's trouble.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and
about 8 pounds.
wasn't one of your first fights within the UFC at flyweight, which
Yeah, stupidest decision I've ever made.
yeah, which is pretty, I mean, if you are only cutting 10 pounds, 9 to 10 pounds to get to straw weight, and then you go up to flyweight, you'd have to gain what, like 30? Like, how did that work? How did that process work?
Listen, I mean, I'm sure you've all watched the fight. It didn't work, and it won't work. No one. So I apologize to all the fighters that are on that card, because we were cooking outdoors, grilling all of the burgers, all of the steak, all of the good food, and they couldn't do any of it. And even then, I think I water loaded just to get to 120. I think my coach was like, put a cell phone in your pocket, it'll be heavier. So yeah, I mean, she was maybe weighing 141 when she got into the cage, and I was maybe not confirmed, but definitely confirmed 120. So
Wow.
yeah. I mean, listen, if there's anything, I've got some brass balls, but that was about it during that fight. So it is what it is.
Now, was it you finally make it to the UFC? You're like,
Oh
holy
yeah.
crap, I'm gonna fight in the UFC, and then you had some losses. Was that like really like what did that do to you?
It sucks. I mean, the first one, anybody watching it would say that I'm fighting a dude and it was some Russian organization if they didn't know any better, right? So,
Right.
okay, so the first fight's the first fight. I definitely can continue to feel composed during that fight. I knew that I didn't feel as defeated. The Sam Hughes fight, that one fucking sucked. That was one where, and I think John Anik, one of the commentators, I want to say it was John, he cursed me a little bit because he called out that I was undefeated as a strawweight, and then of course I lose at a strawweight. So I'm gonna say you don't say it. You don't say it out loud. Okay, you just read it, the stats. But it sucked. It is the biggest thing that I have learned as an individual and as an athlete is that there are so many highs and so many lows. And so for that fight, I had my neighbor upstairs giving me cardio advice, who couldn't run up his flight of stairs on his own. You know what I mean? Like, he was giving me advice. My family, obviously, I mean, there's trolls everywhere. So it was really a fuck you. Like, training for this last fight was a fuck you to everybody else that thought that they had better cardio than me and tried to give me tips.
Would you say in your fight with Sam going up into the third round, how did you feel before that stopped? Like, how did you feel going into that?
I knew I needed a finish.
Right.
I'd say, yeah, I mean, it was something where I was, it sucks. I wasn't there. I felt like I wasn't there. The Elise that you saw the last fight and the one that you saw with Corey McKenna, like that's how I operate. I can see things, I can sense things. And with Sam Hughes, it wasn't that I was super gassed. It wasn't that, I mean, she was obviously very grinding and very gritful, and she definitely had her plan and her purpose, and I couldn't see it. And so I just knew that I needed a finish, which is why I think I held the choke for so long, because I was like, fuck it, is like, if I'm gonna burn out, I'm gonna burn out. And I've never played it safe, and nor will I play it safe. And I think that's what opened her up to that finish. But yeah, I just wasn't there, and it's a shitty thing to have your off day on like a day where that's the only day that matters for the next 6 to 7 months. So yeah, it was a lesson for sure, and I can tell you, it's only gonna happen once. I only fight flyweight once. That's only gonna happen once.
Yeah.
Sam Hughes is only gonna happen once. I'm a person that definitely learns from their mistakes.
Now, something that I think is interesting is I'll be watching UFC and they'll show the corners, right? Like the video of what the corners are telling the fighters. And the fighter's like obviously losing. And then their coach is like, yeah, you're winning, you know, just keep going strong. And I'm always like, and not every fight. You know, you look at Leon Edwards' last fight, and his coach is like, "Come on,
Get your
Leon."
shit together. Yeah.
So how was it? How was it in the corner for you? Would you say, like you said, you knew you needed to get a finish, but was that kind of a mutual thing?
Yeah. I would say because of our relationship, right? Because of my coach and I relationship, he felt everything I felt. And I think sometimes that's a positive and sometimes that's a negative. I'm not going to say it's either or, because we both experienced a loss together. That, you know, my team, my teammates, my family, my friends. Nobody likes to see somebody get beat the shit out of for 15 minutes. But he, from what I remember, he pretty much told me things like let's go, like, you know what you need to do, and just do something. And yeah, I was well aware. He has never told me in a fight that I'm losing that I'm winning, ever.
Right.
Corey McKenna, he's like, listen, I don't know, I think you're losing. You got to finish her. This last fight, we were pretty certain it went 1-1. You got to take the third round, but he's never going to be a person that's like, hey, you're giving it your all there, champ. You got it. Like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't need people to tell us what we want to hear. You know what I mean?
Right.
You gotta hear what you need to hear. And so he's never been a person to do that. But yeah, the Sam Hughes one was rough. That was everybody and their mother knew what needed to happen in that third round, and it did not happen. So it's part of the game. You gotta be there. You gotta be here as much as you are physically as well.
Yeah. And switching from that, I mean, the previous fight, also, I want to know your opinion. What was the fan like when you had that upset against, I believe McKenna? I mean, what did it feel like having the upset in London against?
It was awesome. I honestly thought I was gonna get booed. I was gonna get beer poured on me, and I thought I was gonna come out of there with having to make sure that my face looked good. But the funniest part was there was a person sitting next to us after the fight, and I'm like wearing some type of shirt, right? Not UFC stuff, wearing some type of shirt, and she like tugs on it to fuck me. And she goes, "What, you fight like a Viking? You're a Viking?" And I was like, no, I fight like a Viking. Like, get the fuck out. Like, she didn't know who I was. I didn't know who the fuck she was. And her friend, I guess, told her, and I was like, oh shit, like, that's who you are? I was like, yep. She goes, you just fought? I was like, yep. So then she bought us beers for me and my whole family, and it was great. It was a great time. But I was expecting a lot worse. I love London. It was probably the coolest to see another culture and their response to their fighters. Like, watching Molly McCann and watching Patty Pimblett and like their support was really cool. And to be even a little part of that, even though I ruined Corey's day and probably lost people money over there, it was nice to be able to be a part of it, for sure.
Yeah. And this is kind of drifting from this topic, but this is something I really want to touch on while I can. You're a female mixed martial arts. You know how the community is, you know how intense they are. Even being a younger female in MMA media, it's tough on me. It's just all these words and all these things just saying you can't do this, you don't know this, you're a girl, blah blah. How do you, if this does occur with you, how do you deal with it, and just how do you almost prove them wrong? And
so I say fuck it. Put it in the fucking bucket. But so in the military, it's the same thing. I had a guy ask me a question of, you're going for a certain position, and you have guys that are going for the certain position, and you're going to be you're scrutinized, and you've got a laser scope on you. What does that mean by you and or for you? And I pretty much said, we know we know what it is. Like, we know that there's a higher standard. We know that there's a higher expectation. And if we sleep with 10 people versus a guy sleeping with 10 people, it's going to make a whole hell of a difference. So I don't know. I would say fuck it. I like 99% of people that give you feedback or criticism is because they can't do it themselves. The only time my next door neighbor told me to run and how to do cardio was because I fucking lost and he thought he was better than me, which he is not. But I mean, that's where you get the criticism, right? You get the criticism from people that either wish you were there, wish they could do what you do, or wish at least that they had the balls to do what you're trying to do. So I just say fuck it. It's still hard to hear. I mean, I blocked comments on one of my posts because they just talked about how I was trash, and it's not good for your mental being to get shit on Instagram. But it is what
Yeah.
it is. You know, you're always gonna have
Yeah.
people to tell you that you can't do something, and
Yeah.
the only way to shut them up is to do it. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
oops.
Yeah.
You said earlier that, long term, you do want to stay in UFC as long as you can. What are your goals in UFC? You said, you possibly have a fight coming up. What do you want to do with your UFC career?
I want a belt. I'm gonna get a belt. It's gonna take a little time, but I'm gonna get a belt. I've done it before. I've done it before. I'll do it again. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the competition in all of MMA is escalating pretty quickly. You got Corey McKenna, who's really young. You got the guy that was signed at 17. So they have an opportunity that I didn't. I mean, I think Ronda Rousey came in at 2013, 2014 in the UFC, and I was in college. So they have a lot of people that already know are set up, and they can make a life, with MMA. So they're gonna have a lot of experience. But yeah, no, I want a belt. This is gonna be a belt that's gonna happen. And then once I get a belt, I'm gonna say deuces.
For
Then
sure.
although Conor McGregor, you got to defend it. So I'll defend it at least once or twice.
Yeah.
And
And
then
you're
I'll say
still
deuces.
young. I mean, you're
Yeah.
29
Yeah.
years old. I mean, you still have so much time. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like a fun little question. Who do you have for Carla Esparza versus Zhang Weili fighting in UFC 281? Who do you see holding that belt after?
Good question.
I think Zhang showed a lot of weakness in the ground game with Rose. I think Zhang hits like a truck, and my coach has told me whatever she's on that I need to get on. So I could learn a lot from Zhang. But Carla's been there for so long and has so much experience. I'm unsure. I mean, the thing is the last fight you couldn't really find anything out, right? I mean, 60 strikes in 5 rounds.
Yeah.
So you didn't see a lot of her or Rose in that fight.
It's a hard one, yeah.
Yeah, I think if Zhang can touch her, it's over. It's over and under 5. I think if Carla can grind her, I think it's gonna be a decision. So, who do you got?
I don't know who even. I mean, I'm a fan of Zhang. She's like I have a soft spot for soft people. I always say that. She's not a soft person in there, but she's a soft person outside. But she's a bad woman. And so I'm like,
Zhang. Yeah. So you have Zhang.
Yes.
What do you got?
I appreciate you giving Carla Esparza some respect, because I feel like a lot of people aren't actually giving her the respect she deserves. Early prediction, I might go with Carla. And I think I like Weili a little more, but I think
so
pull it out.
Yeah, so I agree, right? I mean,
yeah,
I think Carla's game plan has been there since the beginning of time. She's been a wrestler since the tough days and took out Rose initially, right? And so you look at Rose and Carla and how Rose couldn't figure out Carla. Well, Rose is arguably one of the best strikers in the division.
Sure.
I'm not sure, right? If Weili can't figure out Carla, but see, Weili's built like a truck. She just got to run forward.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say probably Weili. I'm almost rooting for the older person. I'm almost rooting for Carla, but I think Weili will come back. Weili will take it. She lost once, and she's gonna take that really hard.
Yeah. And in terms of just these fighters, if you could have a dream fight within this division, like your perfect matchup, who would you face?
Perfect matchup. I mean, fighting Rose would be fucking crazy. That would be pretty cool. That would be like
all out war.
Somebody else. Yeah. Oh, it would be fun as fuck too. But it would be something like fighting a GSP or fighting some of those people that have really put themselves in the division. I'd say someone that's a little bit more reasonable, at least right now, would be Angela Hill.
Yes.
I mentioned her name once or twice. I think she's really solid. And I mean, I get that I got to work on wrestling, and that's really important. And I got some takedowns this last go around. But if you're gonna ask me for my favorite fight, it's always gonna be a banger, because I want to throw some blows. You know what I mean? I want to shed some blood and have the other person shedding blood. So I'd say one of those two. I mean, fighting Rose would be I mean, Mr. K.
That would be insane. Yeah.
Yeah, my coach is already like, listen, win or loss, I'm getting a selfie with their coaches. So I mean,
Yeah.
like it
For
is what
sure.
it is.
Yeah. Trevor Whitman up there. Yeah.
But yeah, I think seeing her do so well and then be able to fight her would be pretty cool. So we'll see.
For sure. Yeah. And in terms of like your next fight, when are you thinking kind of, or how do you feel?
They want before the end of the year.
Oh, okay. All right. So
they want before the end of the year. I thought I was gonna have a nice, Thanksgiving, enjoy the fall, go beer tasting, wine tasting. But right now they're looking for before the end of the year. So we'll see. If not before the end of the year, I don't think it's gonna be any later than middle of January. So you'll see me really, really soon. But yeah, they asked again today. So
oh wow.
So
yeah, I mean, you've created this right. You've always been so active, and now they're just like, okay, when's next? When's next? When's next?
Oh, yeah.
I can't.
Awesome. Yeah, they don't give me a week, and it's fine. It's fine. You get to this position, you can only learn from experience. So I'm happy to jump in there again. I want to make sure that obviously now that we're making a name a little bit, that my body feels good, that I get a good fight camp in, so I can showcase what I can do. But yeah, possibly before the end of the year.
I'm sure that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
hey,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I definitely appreciate your time, appreciate your service as well. How can people stay up to date with you and know when that next fight's coming?
Yeah, so I mean, Instagram is probably the best one. I tried TikTok and I haven't used it in probably 3 months, so don't do that. But Instagram and Twitter are my two key points there, and obviously listening to you guys, because you guys get the information. So those are the three.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I appreciate it. It was an honor, and thank you for everything you do. And I'll be here when the Rose fights happens, because it is gonna happen. Nowhere in the future.
Oh yeah.
We'll be rooting for you when it does. And just thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, and listen, if you guys need anything, you just let me know. Hit me up. All right, for real.
We will for sure.
Appreciate it.